From the nation's capital, Eye on Washington with Marilee Joyce. A weekly discussion about the federal issues most important to Nevada. And now, from Washington, D.C., here's Marilee Joyce.
And good day to you. I'm Marilee Joyce. This is Eye on Washington, the only statewide Nevada news program produced in Washington, D.C. Every week, Eye on Washington takes you straight to Capitol Hill for a discussion with Nevada's delegation and other leaders about the federal matters that matter to you. Today's topic, a day in the life of a Nevada congressperson. We'll tell you about one Nevada member's committee, caucus, and special assignments, and why they matter to you. And she is my guest today, of course, Nevada U.S. Congresswoman Shelley Berkley.
Hello, Marilee.
Thanks for being here. When you watch the news, you might catch a view of the Congress voting or otherwise engaged on the floor in the House or the Senate, but it's often the behind-the-scenes work in committees and caucuses that lead to the authorship of legislation. And today on Eye on Washington, we'll tell you about my guest's membership on what many call Congress's most powerful committee. We'll tell you about some caucuses she serves on that greatly impact Nevada, and we'll tell you about her special position that lets her legally whip folks into shape. And let's start with that latter, lest you think we are advocating violence here on Eye on Washington. Congresswoman Berkley has been reappointed as senior whip for the 112th Congress by the House Democratic leadership. The House and Senate have majority and minority whips. Majority status, of course, goes to the party with majority control. And then there are senior whips. And then those whips have subordinate regional whips. And that's what our Congresswoman was until her big promotion to senior whip in 2006. Now she's the regional's big boss. Anyway, the role of the whip is to keep track of all legislation, assess support for the various bills, and gather the votes needed to pass the ones they hope pass on the floor of the House of Representatives. So the regional whips support to the senior whips, who report to the big whips above them, all in the quest to organize action in particular matters before Congress on behalf of their party. And Congresswoman, while researching for this show, I read two kind of funny comments. One comparing the whip role to, quote, just like whipping horses to make them gallop, and the other saying the term is from a hunting term, whipping in, as in preventing hounds from wandering away from the pack. But you're a Western gal, so maybe the first analogy is better, or maybe both.
Actually, they're both just right on perfect.
Tell us a little bit about the senior whip and being reappointed to it and what you do.
Well, of course, I was very pleased to be reappointed to the senior whip position because it gives you additional status and power within your own party, which translates into helping you get things done for your district and your state. So that's why it's important for me to be in this position to help the people that I represent.
So what do both you and your Republican counterpart do to get votes lined up and to make sure there's enough folks there to vote on them?
Well, you know, you need to be very conversant on the issues, and that's one of the reasons I like the senior whip position. You have to know your stuff before you ask other members of your caucus to vote and support the position that you are asking them to do. And so you need to know your stuff, and you are required to get a particular number of your colleagues to vote for a particular piece of legislation. And when you go on the floor, I call them up on the phone, or I run into them in committee and I pull them aside, and I tell them, are you going to be voting in favor of H.R. 235? And they'll say, well, tell me what it is. And then I have to know right on the spot exactly what the benefits are, what the legislation is, and often how this particular piece of legislation helps this congressperson in their own district. And that's the key. If you can convince somebody that the legislation that you are asking them to vote for is good for the people they represent, chances are they're going to support it.
And then on top of that, you have to make sure the folks show up and vote.
Well, that's another thing. And usually I'm stationed, if you watch major votes, you'll see that I'm stationed in the well of the House. Why am I stationed in the well of the House? First, I could see the entire House from that vantage point, but anybody coming up to vote has to go past me. And so I know, I've got my list, I know who's supposed to be voting yes. There's also sometimes that we ask, let's say, people that know these issues very well to get on the board early so that other members that tend to follow the more significant members when it comes to a particular issue will look up and see that, oh, look at that.
They know it.
They're voting yes, I'm going to follow their lead.
You were a regional whip for 4 years. Does regional refer to areas of the country?
It does indeed. And
so were you Western region? Or?
A Western region, with the exception that California is its own region in and of itself. These are the Rocky Mountain West states.
Okay.
And so we have a commonality of interest. We meet together. And I was a whip representing the Rocky Mountain states. Then I, of course, received the appointment to become a senior whip, and I have a number of regional whips reporting to me.
I've heard of this one woman named Nancy Pelosi who in 2002 served as minority whip. Perhaps you might end up being minority whip and follow in those footsteps to speaker and then beyond. I mean, who's to say? Well,
who is to say? I don't know what my future holds, but certainly it's a prestigious position. Right. Being a whip, I mean, there's 435 members of Congress, and roughly divided among between the two parties. It's like herding cats. I mean, everybody has an issue. Everybody has a problem. There's always a sentence in the bill that one doesn't like, a sentence in the bill that the other one likes too much. And so it's factoring all of these things in and trying to figure out how you're going to get to the magic number of 218 to pass that particular piece of legislation that you're whipping for.
As we're ending this segment, you've touched on it a little in the beginning of the Q&A, but why is it important to Nevada to have a senior whip?
Well, I think when you are part of a small state and a small state delegation, any advantage that any one of us gets in their own caucus in Congress is helpful to the rest of the delegation. There are issues that are important to Nevada that, given this position, it gives me the added stature to go to other members that and explain Nevada issues when it comes to Nevada votes. So I think it's good for all of us. We all, what do they say when the tide rises? All the boats right. should be where the tide rises.
Okay, thanks. And when we come back, we're going to tell you that she serves on what's considered maybe the most powerful committee on Capitol Hill. It's right after this.
You're watching Eye on Washington with Marilee Joyce. Brought to you by the Southern Nevada Water Authority, the National Mining Association, the Frias Companies, Caesars Entertainment, NV Energy, the Las Vegas Convention and Visitors Authority, and Skyline Restaurant and Casino.
Sunrise, the Mojave Desert. Just another day in Southern Nevada? Think again, pal. Millions of concerned citizens are throwing in to conserve water. Yes, from the welcoming hills of Boulder City to the friendly streets of Spring Valley, everyone's playing their part. Way to go, Joe. It's a desert out there. Be water smart. Go to snwa.com.
Eye on Washington with Marilee Joyce, Nevada's only statewide program produced in Washington, D.C., is your weekly update on the top federal issues that are most important to Nevadans. But for even more news from Capitol Hill that affects you, your family, and your business, you need to read Nevada's Washington Watch, our online newsletter. In-depth reporting on federal efforts that impact you. Our exclusive Inside the Beltway column that puts a microscope on Nevada's congressional delegation. Guest editorials from industry and business leaders about what Nevada needs from the Hill. Nevada's Washington Watch, your watch on Washington. Subscribe today at nevadaswashingtonwatch.com.
Heads we go, tails we stay. A coin flip. That's how it all began for what is now Nevada's largest transportation provider. Charlie Frias, with a can-do spirit and support of his loving wife Phyllis, bought ABC Union Cab in 1966. They then parlayed 5 cabs into a fleet of nearly 1,000. And today, Frias has over 2,000 employees and was recently voted Las Vegas's best company to work for. Frias, safe, reliable, simply the best.
America's minerals have made us a nation of self-reliant dreamers, shaping our world and the endless ways we enjoy it. But red tape often forces us to import more than half the minerals we depend on. Minerals we already have. We don't import our dreams. Shouldn't that go for our minerals, too? the National Mining Association. Learn more at nma.org.
And welcome back to Eye on Washington and our discussion of a day in the life of one Nevada U.S. Congresswoman. And she is my guest today, of course, Nevada U.S. Congresswoman Shelley Berkley. Quiz time. What do welfare reform, a Medicare prescription drug benefit, Social Security reform, the Bush tax cuts, and all trade agreements, including NAFTA, have in common? Give up? Well, they're all major issues that had to go through the House Ways and Means Committee, a committee my guest has served on since 2007, along with her House colleague, Congressman Dean Heller. The committee is the chief tax writing committee of the House of Representatives. It has jurisdiction over all taxation, tariffs, and other revenue-raising measures, as well as a number of other programs, including Social Security, unemployment benefits, Medicare, enforcement of child support laws, temporary assistance of needy families, a federal welfare program, foster care, and adoption program. If you serve on this committee, you cannot serve on any others unless you get a special waiver from party leadership, which, Congresswoman, you did have a special waiver. You served for some time on foreign affairs until this year.
I did.
But to our segment subject, you know, the issues dealt by Ways and Means, they're so important all the time, but in a recession, you could do an entire show just on what it does with unemployment benefits,
couldn't you? You're exactly right. Look, this is the taxing committee, and you're quite right. It is the most powerful committee in the House of Representatives. The power to tax is the power to destroy, but it's also the power to do well and to do good while you're doing well. There are a number of issues that are so important to the people I represent, and you just named so many of them. Social Security. Our Social Security system is going to have to be repaired so that it continues to exist for generations to come. I'm on the Social Security subcommittee. This is going to be a very important issue in front of our committee. The prescription drug plan to provide affordable prescription medication to older Americans, Medicare, and reimbursing the doctors for seeing Medicare patients. If we stop reimbursing the doctors, they don't serve Medicare patients, and the entire Medicare system is in danger of collapse.
So to help our audience understand how you will begin that process, let's look at the past. Some of the major issues we've heard over the years, NAFTA, the tax cuts, welfare reform, how do they come to be as far as their start in Congress? How do they come to be as in your committee?
Well, somebody introduces legislation that impacts on any one of those things. Let's talk about unemployment benefits, because the state of Nevada has been very hard hit. People are hurting, and we have a huge unemployed population, many of whom are now receiving unemployment benefits. Somebody introduces legislation, me for instance, to extend unemployment benefits for another 26 weeks. Or another year or another 6 months. That goes before the committee for hearing. And once it's in your committee, you can help guide what the testimony is going to be, what the witnesses are, which witnesses are selected to help educate members of Congress. Then there's a voting committee. It ultimately, if it's a favorable vote, ends up on the floor of the House of Representatives. Now, there's a lot of steps in between, and lobbying, and I say that in the best sense, where you're trying to explain to your colleagues why they should be voting to extend unemployment benefits, even if their states haven't been as hard hit as Nevada.
Can you give our audience an example of something you've personally been involved in, arranging for certain guests to come and speak on an issue, and maybe some direct influence you've had on maybe some legislation that Nevadans may have heard about?
Yes, and I'll give you a perfect example of this. When last year, when I was on the Income Security Subcommittee, they were talking, the testimony was regarding our social service agencies and our foster programs, foster care programs for children that for whatever reason are no longer in the care of their families. They're now in the care of the state and the county, and they are in foster care. They asked me, since we have a huge problem, certainly in southern Nevada, a high number of children that are in foster care, if there was somebody that I would like to bring back to Washington to testify and explain the situation in Nevada and what we would recommend for the rest of the country. So I brought the administrator from Clark County that administers the foster care program to come and discuss the pitfalls. Particularly, one thing that we talked about is when you're 18, you age out of foster care. How many 18-year-olds can be on their own? They've got no support system, no health care, no job, no education. Those are the kids we want to help.
Quickly, as we're running out of time in this segment, what does it mean to Nevada that a relatively smallish state has not one but two members on this powerful committee?
I think it's good, and you never know who's going to be in control. Last year, I had a pretty good hand to play. I was in the majority, and I sat on the most powerful committee, and there was Dean in the minority on Ways and Means. Now that the House has changed parties and Dean is in the majority, it's good for the state that we're both there, and you never know what the next election is going to bring.
Okay, we're going to talk about a whole new area of your daily life, and that's your work on caucuses.
Oh, yes.
That's when Eye on Washington comes right back.
Sunrise. The Mojave Desert. Just another day in southern Nevada? Think again, pal. Millions of concerned citizens are throwing in to conserve water. Guests from those hipsters in Henderson to those frolicking families around Lone Mountain, everyone's playing their part. Nice frolicking. It's a desert out there. Be water smart. Go to snwa.com.
Every day, thousands of people in northern Nevada don't get enough to eat. 1 out of 5 children in northern Nevada go to bed hungry every night. But you can do something about it. Catholic Community Services of Northern Nevada has been providing help and creating hope in our community for more than 65 years. By donating food, time, or money, you can make a difference in a hungry person's life. When you make your generous donation to St. Vincent's Dining Room and St. Vincent's Food Pantry, you're helping to fight the scourge of hunger in northern Nevada. In these tough economic times, now more than ever, we need to help those less fortunate. To find out how you can donate to St. Vincent's Dining Room and St. Vincent's Food Pantry, call, click, or stop by, and together we can end hunger in northern Nevada.
How will new energy technology make our lives better? Will geothermal, wind, and solar energy be a bigger part of our future? Yes. And soon it will all be in our backyard. Learn more at nvenergy.com.
You already watch Eye on Washington with Marilee Joyce, Nevada's only statewide program produced in Washington, D.C. But for even more news from Capitol Hill that affects you, your family, and your business, you need to read Nevada's Washington Watch, our online newsletter. In-depth reporting on federal efforts that impact you. Our exclusive Inside the Beltway column, putting a microscope on Nevada's congressional delegation. Guest editorials about what Nevada needs from the Hill. Nevada's Washington Watch, your watch on Washington. Subscribe today at nevadaswashingtonwatch.com.
Thanks to an ongoing commitment by America's mining companies, more than 2 million acres already have been reclaimed. To learn more about reclamation or other aspects of mining, visit nma.org, the National Mining Association.
And welcome back to Eye on Washington, our discussion of a day in the life of one Nevada House member. And we've been visiting with her, Nevada U.S. Congresswoman Shelley Berkley.
Hi, Marilee.
There are more than 300 congressional caucuses, and would it surprise you to learn that our Congresswoman has some involvement with about 40 of them? Now, some meet infrequently, but some are hugely important to you in Nevada, and we're going to talk about them shortly. But first, let's define our topic. A caucus, as the word relates to the Congress, is a subgrouping of officials with shared affinities or ethnicities who convene with the general purpose of advocating for or voting for a certain policy. In other words, the members of a congressional caucus work together to voice and advance the issues important to the group the caucus represents. Now, some caucuses are well known, like the Congressional Black Caucus, whose work often is in the news. Some are almost unheard of, like the Zoo and Aquarium Caucus. There are about 175 caucuses formed around single issues, and 2 issues that have their own caucuses might pique your interest, and the Congresswoman is on them both: the Gaming Caucus, which she chairs, and also the Tourism and the Travel and Tourism Caucus. Now, the Gaming Caucus works to educate fellow lawmakers on the importance of the gaming industry to the economy and to the thousands of people it employs. The Travel and Tourism Caucus advocates for a strong tourism industry, which affects obvious tourist centers like Nevada, but also is important to every state in the union. So let's spend most of this QSA talking about the caucuses that mostly focus on Nevada. Of course. Gaming and tourism are the biggies, of course. Tell us a bit about each.
Well, I think they're almost self-evident. Gaming is the major industry in the state of Nevada. It's the engine that drives our economic train, and it's important that we have a commonality of interest among members of Congress who are interested in gaming issues. Now, it doesn't take a genius to figure out who I asked to be members. The New Jersey delegation, the Louisiana delegation, the representatives who represent New Orleans, because there's gaming there. But you're quite right. Almost every state in the union has some form of gaming. So those of us who have a significant share of gaming or have, boats, offshore boats, gaming boats, and different other venues where gaming is practiced or enjoyed, I should say, we come together. So if there's an issue that affects gaming, we're already together, we already know each other, we're already networked, and I get the word out.
Before you get to travel and tourism, I must just interject a bit of trivia here. Former Nevada U.S. Congressman Jim Santini was the first Secretary-Treasurer of the Gaming Caucus in 1978, and further disclosure, he's also my godfather. I must throw that in there.
Well, I'm wondering if he has any money left over from his time, because we could use it right now.
Exactly. Please get to the travel and tourism.
Travel and tourism is a little more expansive than gaming. Gaming is more of a niche. Travel and tourism, it's the 6th biggest industry in the entire nation. Employs millions of people, and so those of us, again, who have travel and tourism and have economies that are dependent on it, we band together mostly to protect our industry, the tourism travel industry, from onerous taxes that would burdenous taxes.
I want to give you a chance. I know another favorite caucus of yours that I didn't get a chance to get to in the introduction is the osteoporosis caucus. I know that affects you personally, and I know you've been a big advocate for everything it's trying to do. And
I think years ago we taled about this. Obviously, I have osteoporosis. You
brought with you the president of the association.
I did indeed. Oh my gosh, you have a good memory. I have osteoporosis, so it's an issue and a disease that I know something about. Sure. As chairman of the Osteoporosis Caucus, I am in a very unique position to work with the osteoporosis organizations across the country to provide educational opportunities for members of Congress, and it's an important thing to do, and we're competing against a lot of other interests in our nation's capital, but that's why we do it.
And finally, just for fun, tell us about your favorite little-known caucus. When you were here a couple years ago talking about this, you were on the After-School Caucus, the Friends of Canada Caucus, and the Fitness Caucus, or some I remember. Anything else that's...
I need to be more active in the Fitness Caucus, I think. Look, let me go to more ethnicity, and I chair the Taiwan Caucus. Why? Because Taiwan is an important ally of the United States, and we have a large community in Las Vegas that comes from Taiwan. So it's a natural fit, and it's a good trading partner of the United States.
Okay, we're going to be right back with our mailbag segment right after this.
Sunrise, the Mojave Desert. Just another day in southern Nevada? Think again, pal. Millions of concerned citizens are throwing in to conserve water. Yes, from the sunny folks at Sunrise Mountain to our pals out in Red Rock. Everyone's playing their part. Saving water is fun? I'll say, it's a desert out there. Be water smart. Go to snwa.com.
All of us at Caesars Entertainment have something we want to say.
Play responsibly.
Play responsibly. We don't want you to gamble if you've had too much to drink.
You shouldn't gamble if you're lonely or depressed.
And if you're under 21, you're not allowed to play.
No, no, no.
No matter which of our casinos you come to, our message is always the same.
Play responsibly.
Play responsibly.
Play responsibly.
We know you're coming to our casinos to have a good time, and we always want you to leave feeling like you did.
Built on a fleet of just 5 cabs bought in 1966 by founder Shelley Frias, Frias Transportation is now Nevada's largest transportation provider. Today, Frias has a fleet of nearly 1,000 vehicles and more than 2,000 employees. As an industry and community leader, Frias continues to create the future of transportation technology and management and actively supports the community, continuing the legacy of quality service in the Las Vegas Valley. Simply the best. Thanks to an ongoing commitment by America's mining companies, more than 2 million acres already have been reclaimed. To learn more about reclamation or other aspects of mining, visit nma.org, the National Mining Association.
Sunrise. The Mojave Desert. Just another day in southern Nevada? Think again, pal. Millions of concerned citizens are throwing in to conserve water. Guests from those hipsters in Henderson to those frolicking families around Lone Mountain, everyone's playing their part. Nice frolicking. It's a desert out there. Be water smart. Go to snwa.com.
And we are back with our closing segment of Eye on Washington. It's our mailbag segment, and this is a segment where we tell you about an issue our Congress guest has been receiving a lot of correspondence about. We read one of your letters on the air, and then we invite our guests to respond to you right here. And Congresswoman, your office has been hearing a lot about surprise, the economy. I have a letter for you from Darren of Las Vegas. He says, "Dear Congresswoman Berkley, I see a lot of things in the news about the work being done to bring economic recovery to Nevada, yet people are seeing little effect. Nevada's still suffering from high unemployment and foreclosure rates. Please let us know what else can be done to help the state recover." What do you say to Darren?
Well, I think we need an entire show for this question. The reality is this. I'm home every weekend. People come up to me and they go, "Congresswoman, I never missed a day of work. I never missed a mortgage payment. I lost my job. I'm losing my home. What are you going to do about it?" Now, I can sit there and write back Darren and tell him, well, we passed this bill and that bill and unemployment benefits and a middle-income tax cut and the HIRE Act to help employers hire people. But the reality is, until the rest of the country recovers, Nevada isn't, because we depend on disposable income for people to come to Las Vegas and spend their money on our wholesome family entertainment. It's going to take a while, and that's a very tough thing to tell families.
And we'll have you on again soon to tell us about the things you are.
That's a whole segment.
And that does wrap up this week's Eye on Washington. Be sure to join us next time as we discuss more important federal matters and their impact on you in Nevada. And for news anytime about federal issues and their impact on you, visit us at joycecommunications.com. I'm Marilee Joyce in Washington. Good day.